So I hope you guys appreciate the humor in my title, right? I'm not here to sell a book. I'm not here to, because I wouldn't. With that title, I wouldn't sell any book. But this is, I was trying to find, one of those crack diets that, promote quick weight loss, and they have like a pow in the background and a bunch of exclamation points and things like that. But, and make it a title like this, I don't know, I just hope you find the humor in that. But this is kind of how I did it, how I lost my weight. And this is how I try to promote it with people, and I'm gonna say this a bunch of times, slower weight loss is better because you're not gonna gain it back as quick. And there's science behind it, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about the science. This was built for med students. I gave this talk in Flagstaff at the CHC there for the junior senior med students, 3rd and 4th years. So it might be a little bit science-y, but I'll talk also about a lot of personal experience. And if anybody has anything to chime in, go ahead. I'm not the know-it-all about weight loss at all. I just know that what I went through, and I know some of the science behind it and what my patients go through also. So this is me in March of '06. Okay, so the beautiful lady right by me is my wife now, but she was my girlfriend back then. And this is kind of funny because this was in San Diego, and we took surf lessons. I'm from Iowa, I'd never surfed before, and I didn't get on that board that day. But there was this instructor. His name was Chad, and he was, kind of bulky, and he had the little sunscreen on the nose, and spent most of his time with my wife. While I was throwing up ocean water, he had his hand on my wife's leg, and they were they were surfing, and my wife got up on the board pretty well. So it was a banner day for me. But that's what I used to look like. And that's probably one of the thinner pictures that I have. Some of you might know this, but when you're overweight and even obese, you don't like your picture taken that much. You don't like to look at yourself that much. And I noticed going back, and I was trying to find pictures, I didn't have a lot of pictures because I didn't really like what I looked like. With men, we don't talk about it very often, but I think that was really what was going on. So that's March of '06. That's me in 2010, so similar. Okay, I'm just giving you what I looked like. Those are my 2 kids, and that's in Flagstaff. In my personal story, I was a college football player. I played like a fullback position. I was always big, and I was always referred to as big guy. And as I got older, that kind of migrated south. The bulkiness kind of migrated south. By the way, you guys can laugh. It's okay. Okay, and so I seriously, I just don't have a lot of pictures, but that's what I was about 60 to 70 pounds ago. Especially this picture here. That was probably 70 pounds ago. This was 60 pounds ago. Okay, so that's August of 2010, and that's me today. Those are my kids, so you can kind of get a gauge. Now, there was a lot of time that went by from that picture to December of 2012, and that's the theme that I'm going to continue on. It was a slow-moving process. I'll talk more about that here. So what happened for me, basically diet and exercise are what happened. There's a picture of a marathon, and it's a Mediterranean diet, and that's what we do at home, my wife and I. And it is true that married men live longer. My wife promotes that a lot, and she does a good job of putting that into our diet. So I love Hippocrates, and he's got great quotes. If you ever need a medical quote, an inspirational quote, he has them. But he had it right on the nose. Every individual had the right amount of nourishment and exercise, not too little, not too much, would have found the safest way to health. So that balance is what, for me, helped me, and I think that balance is what we consistently try to find with our patients, okay, to prevent chronic disease and some of the state that we're at now. So that's it. That's what I did. Basically, any diet that you break down, any diet plan, anything that you talk about as far as losing weight, it's decreasing energy intake, your calories, your food, and it's increasing energy expenditure, your exercise, okay, or your activity. That's it. I can't think of any other thing that maybe you can talk about behavioral modifications and your mental health too, but that's really it. I wish it was that easy though, right? Because it's not that easy, but that's, when you break it all down, that's what you have to do. So we at SOMA, if you guys aren't aware, and my colleagues are kind of smiling a little bit, we work in schemes a little bit with our clinical presentation model. And I show this to the students more, because there is a scheme for that. Weight gain and obesity is what I'm talking about today. And we break it down, and some of it is genetic, right? So you can have a genetic predisposition, especially some of the syndromes, Down syndrome, that you can have a genetic predisposition for that. You can have pathologic or pregnancy. Those are easy to test for. This one is. This one I don't see very often, okay? Everybody thinks it's their thyroid, right? But it never is, okay? I mean, almost, I wouldn't say it never is. I've never seen it before, so just because of your thyroid. But there are medical conditions, and I do highlight that, what medical conditions, and there are medications that can cause you to gain weight. But what I'm going to talk about today is that energy balance. Increased intake, decreased outtake, decreased expenditure. Okay? And then you break it down into dietary and social, behavioral, and we'll talk about that a little bit. All right, so what do I tell patients? I've been struggling with this since I became a doctor. And a lot of my life change came from my patients. I'm seeing them over and over in the frustration to try to get them to lose weight. In truth, I started my process because I couldn't get them to lose weight, I don't think. If you looked at my statistics and my patients, their A1Cs probably stayed the same. We used more meds. I couldn't really get them to adhere to a lot. And I didn't have a lot. I'm an Air Force doc, prior Air Force doc, and I worked at an air base. And we didn't have a lot of nutritionalists and other support. So it was me talking to them. I got very frustrated, and that's when I started to change my body a little bit, so maybe that they can see that, and then go from there. Because I'm an internist, I deal with a lot of chronic disease. So we'll start with the obesity epidemic. Everybody's heard about this, right? 2/3 of Americans are obese or overweight, and we use a value called the BMI, body mass index, to measure that. But what really has gone up in the last 30, 40 years is the morbid obesity. Okay, so the obesity, the different classes have really gone up, and that's alarming. So in Arizona, this is from the Republic about a year ago, Arizona is on track to be almost 60% obese by 2030. And that's pretty alarming. That's something that we are going to, if nothing else, pay for, okay? It's going to cost a lot of money, medical expenses. So also with the obesity epidemic, just having the truncal obesity or the abdominal obesity that a lot of us have further increases our risk, our health risks. So just some stats. That's The Simpsons, where Homer wants to get disability payments so he got big and obese. And this was in the 90s, and they paid for his disability to work at home. So anyway, I was a big Simpsons fan back then. That was about college time. But here's what happens when you have excess energy, energy storage, and adipose tissue. It deposits itself when you can't use it, when you're not burning it off. For people here that are non-medical, thank you, that are non-medical, it starts depositing in organs, right? So our liver, there's a term called fatty liver. That's not a benign condition. That actually can turn into something worse, which can turn into cirrhosis, okay? Excuse me. So, and it has its effects on muscle, limits insulin coming into the muscle, and so it promotes insulin resistance and diabetes. And so all over, you guys have heard about blood vessels and plaque formation, and that I don't have to probably go into that, but all over your body, when you have this excess adipose tissue and obesity, it's really a state of chronic inflammation. Not good. Here's that graph that I told you about, the extreme over the years down below, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. Over the years down below, and then the BMI over here. And so the actual obesity has gotten a lot worse. I think it says tripled, yep. Tripled over the last, since the 80s, 90s. So this is worrisome in here. It's kind of interesting that this has stayed about the same, the overweight. But it's that breakdown. And along with that, the diabetes breakdown has gotten worse. So 1% in 1960, okay? And we're primarily talking about type 2 diabetes from insulin resistance, okay? And the diabetes got worse, 7% now. Yeah, this is an alarming slide. So the obesity doubles your risk of all-cause mortality, and extreme obesity triples your risk. So this little graph here, you want to be in this little low part, right? So just funny because men get away with being a little overweight here, don't they? And then the all-cause mortality then skies up as you get heavier. And then women don't get that benefit as much. I'm sorry. The women don't get a lot of benefit when it comes to weight here, and you'll see that. But they're mostly healthy in the when their BMI is 20 to 25. That's a healthy range. Once they get overweight, obese, it starts going up. You guys can read this here. This is funny. So this is from The Onion. New study finds it's impossible to lose weight. Nobody has ever done it, and those who are should stop trying or should give up. So my wife picked that up, but that's what I think that's what a lot of people feel like when they go through diet after diet after diet, and they look the same. All right. So I want to go a little bit through the facts. Okay, so there's an amount that is required to maintain weight. Okay. And there's the calculations there. And I don't have to go through it a lot, but it's about 2,000, some a little more, some a little less, depending on how much you weigh, and if you're a man or a woman. And WHO has good tables to show you, and I think I have it here, of what you actually just burn, your basal metabolic rate, what you burn every day by just sitting around. And there's some variability in there. I think that's where genetics comes into play. I'm pointing at Anna Campbell because she says she's got good genes. And so does I was talking to my wife does too, and her family side, which we all hate them for, right? But there's some people that do, they just have the genetics to burn more calories than others. So there's a variability about 20%, depending on the individual. But if you take all these calculations, if you can just cut out 500 calories a day, and that would be about a pound a week. 3,500 calories equals a pound. So just keep that in your mind. I'm not promoting that you do that you try to lose a pound a week. That maybe is a little bit fast for me. But if you can just think about taking a 500 calorie something out of your diet, right there you should be able to lose a little bit of weight. And it doesn't take much to eat 500 calories. I don't know. Mm-hmm.
You take out 500 of those calories, would you still have that weight?
It depends. If your body has been at the same weight on the 3,000 calories a day, meaning you're probably doing some sort of activity, even if you're not exercising, if you're just a little more fidgety or something like that, where you're burning the 3,000 calories. So if you have a constant weight, I don't know how long the time is, probably a couple months constant weight, and then you take away the 500, yes, you should start losing. It does become harder as you lose weight to continue to lose weight. And that there's a lot of hormones involved with that, but I think of it as a thermostat. Your body kind of, you get used to being a certain weight and your body wants to go back to that weight. So it becomes harder to continue to lose, and I think that's where people have a difficult time maintaining weight. But this is a simplified breakdown too. This is the WHO estimating your basal metabolic rate chart. And it breaks down by men, women, and unfortunately, women don't burn as much calories, and the older you get, the worse it gets. I'm sorry. It just, there's so many points of this that is so inspiring. I know. And you're not going to hear a lot of stuff that you don't already know. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Let's try to gear towards something else now. But then it also, you determine your activity factor, and then that helps too. That's just one way to look at it. So I get this comment a lot. I don't know if you guys have heard this. I can look at food and still gain weight. As a physician, you're like, I don't know what to tell you. It's got to be something though, right? So, and especially when you even test them for a bunch of things, and you've looked at all their meds, and but then they still say that. So let's talk about that. So women lose more weight than men if they have a similar exercise routine. That's been well studied, unfortunately. And the metabolic rates do decline about 2% per decade. So, and there are genetic factors. So there's people that just, they could just maintain their weight more. I'm not one of those people, by the way. So this is the part where I was going to show a picture of my family, but I kind of felt like I was throwing them under the bus a little bit. My dad's side of the family are all heavy people. So part of the problem with me was I was probably one of the lighter ones. And so there was nobody to, tell me that I was, to change or anything like that. I was one of the lighter ones of the bunch. So, so there are definitely genetic factors. And my sister deals with this a lot, and it's one thing we have in common. But here's the facts. Nobody has needed fewer than 1,000 calories a day to maintain maintenance. So you might think that you're restricting your caloric intake, but they've done actual studies, put people in chambers, okay, not let them do anything, and they will lose weight if they don't get at least 1,000 calories. It is studied that is true. So those people who think they're metabolically resistant, they should still lose weight if they restrict their diet to 800 to 1,200 calories a day. I'm not telling you to do that, because that is a severe restriction, especially when you get into 800 and 1,000. I mean, you're going to feel hungry a lot. But you're not metabolically resistant. You can still do it. Also, this has also been studied. It was interesting that people who are overweight will underreport what they eat by about 30% or more. Normal people will overreport by about 10%. So overweight people will fudge a little more when they talk to their doctor, and I understand that. Historically, food logs, food journals have been very inaccurate. And that's probably why they've looked at that. So, all right, so just a little game here. What do you guys think? Let's start with the sandwich. What are we saying? How many calories are on the sandwich? The Subway breakfast sub, the Eat Fresh Healthy Subway breakfast sub. 400. All right. 600. Getting closer. What about 800? I think it's around 700. I got the answer here. What about the Mocha Lotta Chocula? What's that? 300. It's a little more than 300. 18 is a little bit much, but that's. But here's the numbers on it, and this is what I'm talking about just cutting out that 500. 500 doesn't take much, does it? It doesn't take a lot on either side. It doesn't take much to cut it out, but it doesn't take much to gain it back either. I go to, I'm younger and I'm in college or something, and I go to Subway and have one of these sandwiches. I think it's healthy for me because Subway Eat Fresh. Even my son says that. There's Subway Eat Fresh. And that's, and that doesn't even, I don't even think that counts anything you might put on it either. So, and this bad boy, I mean, you kind of know that. You kind of know what you're getting into. But that is substantial. You guys ever been on the elliptical or one of the machines over there and try to count the calories? So if I'm really going hard, and I've been training for a marathon, I might get 1,000 if I do it for an hour or more. I might get 1,000 calories, maybe. But I can pretty much just erase it if I have one of those. And the same way with that, and that might be even worse because I'm drinking my calories and I don't even get to eat, and I love to eat. So here's some more. Which one do you think is the most out of this picture? We'll change it up here. That's true. Yes, it is. Now that's almost 1,500. And this is why I harp on everybody here at the university when they get pizza for lunch. So, and then you have a couple pieces, and you're talking about that's a meat lover's pizza. I think it's from Pizza Hut. So about 500 calories per, and you have a couple for lunch. That's a lot, And so I'm trying to change it a little bit, so at least for lunch, we can do something. And that is something from Taco Bell. It's like the Nacho Grande. It's been a while since I've been there, so. And so yeah, I used I used to love the Arby's roast beef sandwich. I loved it, and so I do the Arby's. And when I was starting this whole transition of running a lot and losing weight, I was running quite a bit, and my wife was out of town or something like that, and so it was just me and the kids, and you know how it is. Like, all right, we're just going to go to Arby's. You can play on whatever the stuff is, and so I had my big roast beef, and then I ran the next day, and I felt so bad. That's so bad that I've never eaten that again, nor have I had French fries or any of that, because I'm a physician, right? I should know that. I should know that would happen to me, but I don't eat these things anymore because that's what makes how I feel. All right, anybody ever heard of this? The U.S. News and World Report rankings on diets. I'm going to steal their thunder here and cite them a lot because I love this thing here. There's a panel of, I think it's about 50 professionals, whether they're nutritionists, dietitians, nurses, doctors, and they got together and they ranked every diet that is out there, basically. And they put measures, there's several different measures, short-term, long-term weight loss, easy to follow, nutrition, safety. They ranked all these. And I really like it. And some they ranked for diabetes or for heart health. So it's a really good, it's really good. It's too much for me to actually show you. So I have clips of it. The number one is the DASH diet. Everybody know what the DASH diet is? Yes. It's dietary approaches to stop hypertension. It wasn't really designed for weight loss, but they developed it low sodium, and they developed it basically balanced. And so that was the number one, and they give the star, they rank all these different ones all the way down. They even have it for convenience and cost too. So the therapeutic lifestyle one is up there, Mayo Clinic diet. And then the Mediterranean, this is the one I follow. Weight Watchers did pretty well. So, and theirs has to do with a point system and for the food. Flexitarian diet. Volumetrics, that one's interesting. That one has to do with the volume of food. People tend to eat the same volume of food, meaning the weight of the food. And so if you're going to eat that weight, they give different points to healthier and not as healthy. So that's kind of interesting. But they're all good diets. If you could see, they're all good diets. They're not all right, this is the one that's definitely going to work. They break it down, and they even talk about on the website, they follow the guidelines for fat, protein, carbohydrates all the way down. They even talk about the different vitamins and things like that. So this is just clips, and basically they're all balanced, and that's one of my other themes here. They're balanced. They emphasize more plant-based foods, and I do agree with that. Avoid sodium, high sodium intake, but they emphasize just some sort of caloric limitation, and you have to have that. Whatever you do, you have to limit your calories at to some degree. Requires exercise. Any diet that tells you not to exercise, especially at first, is dangerous, I think. And usually there's no other supplements needed. So I wasn't even part of this conversation yesterday. One of our friends was talking about some diet she's on that she's doing vitamins and supplements, and she's lost a pant size in a week or something. and I was just thinking, oh God, I have never, as a physician, I've never seen that work for somebody in the long term. I've seen people lose weight. Atkins diet, right? They lose weight, but I've never seen those people keep it off in a long-term, healthy way. And so that's what, and it avoids, sweets, calorie, fat-laden sweets, red meat. Okay, I still eat chocolate. So can't, I'm not perfect. I love the chocolate. So you can't cut everything out. Don't try, all right? So just in general, be cautious about diets that warn against exercise, that cut out complete food groups. I'm talking about Atkins. I'm kind of talking about paleo a little bit, and I don't want to get on them too much because they do have a lot of vegetables, but cutting out a complete food group, I really, it's tough. Unless you're gluten sensitive and you want to cut that out, that's fine. Some of the vegetarian diets are very healthy too, but if they're talking about cutting out complete food groups, tout high short-term weight loss never works. I don't think it ever works that way. And there's one out there now that claims that you can eat all you want in like an hour time frame, and then you like fast for a day. I forget what that's called. Does you guys know what I'm talking about? All right, I didn't spend much time on it, but one of the students was telling me this. Yeah, for like 2 hours you can eat whatever you want, and then you got to go on this prolonged fast, and then you can eat whatever. That's crazy. And anything that actually seems easy. Is there ever been a diet out there that's been easy that people lose weight? I mean, it just doesn't happen. So this thing that I heard with the fasting and all that, it's not new. It's always been, there's been, throughout the years, smoking was supposed to help you lose weight, I got a guy who's running like the hurdles, and he was heavy before, but now that he smokes, he can hurdle. It's great. Lucky Strike's great. I have that one in my office, or I had it in my office, the tapeworm one. Bile Beans, Obesity Soap. These are all from the 20s, 30s, 40s. So, and then I'd like to show this one, but I can't. But it's a video of John Belushi and Saturday Night Live touting little chocolate donuts. Has anybody seen that? Yeah. So it's supposed to be like Bruce Jenner, and he's running and he's winning the Olympics, and then it cuts to him at a desk with chocolate donuts and the Wheaties box with his face on it, and he's smoking and he's holding a chocolate donut, and he's talking about how he has it every day, and that's how he's the champion. So I don't know. I thought that was funny. It might be a stretch, but I thought it was funny. So let me talk about exercise a little bit. I'm not going to keep you here for a whole hour. The exercise stuff it's not as clear. The ADA website says 150 minutes a week for maintenance, for weight maintenance is supposed to be a healthy amount of exercise. But there's a good amount of evidence that it's going to take more, especially if you want to maintain your weight. So 30 minutes, there's a good amount of evidence it's up to 60, for most days of the week, to not only lose weight but then maintain it. So I'll show you that. That's where that comes from. Some resistance in there 2 times a week, and 150, which is about 5 times. It's 30 minutes 5 times a week. If you want to lose weight, it's more than that. That's the short of it. This is just to maintain it. Yeah, and they say moderate intensity. Okay, so my father-in-law, and I don't need to throw him under the bus, but I guess I'm going to. He has the step thing, right? That counts your steps, the pedometer. And those things are great, but they don't really measure your work. Some of them might now. I don't know. He just talks about how many steps he had in a day, but he's not doing. He's doing low intensity exercise. You really got to get your heart rate going. You got to do moderate, walk fast, or at a good pace. Water aerobics, playing devil's tennis. I don't know where I got that. I don't know if anybody, but I got it somewhere and I put it down the line. So really a good moderate intense. You don't need to hate what you're doing, and just vigorous is more jogging, running, swimming laps. That's vigorous. Okay, when you get into that, you don't have to do the 60 minutes of that. But playing singles tennis would be more vigorous, I guess. I probably need to change that. But anyway, that's what gives you an idea what moderate, vigorous. My big thing on this is you can't stroll. There is some evidence that just prolonged sitting increases your mortality, heart disease, diabetes. That just standing up helps. Okay, so any little bit helps. But if I had my druthers to tell somebody, it would be when you do. Make sure it's a set time that you have for yourself to exercise. Make sure it's a set time that you're going to do, I don't know, whatever for a half hour, but you're going to get your heart rate up for it, okay? And make it a priority. And then resistance training can be lifting weights, working with resistance. Any CrossFit's probably okay. You know, you don't do CrossFit. I'm sorry, push you to point at you, but that's a big thing. I see these CrossFit gyms, and they're very good. They do a lot of resistance, and they do a lot of high intensity things. I think they need to do more endurance things. You know, but that's my opinion. Heavy gardening. I should look at my slides on that. Heavy gardening. I don't know what that is, but it would work. All right. So what do I tell patients? This is where I'm at right now. Okay. When I take the history, and really, if I had time to really delve deep into what's going on, I try to get into their behaviors. Who cooks dinner? Who buys the food? What do they eat? Well, how do they eat? You know, I obviously ask if there's any new meds or any pre-existing medical condition, but after that, I'm really focused on behavior with the patients. So, what do they perceive as healthy? You could start with that. And I tell them first off, let's just try not to gain weight. And that might be, maybe I'm setting a lower standard for them, but let's try not to gain weight. And when you first start an exercise program or diet program, you might not lose a lot of weight. In fact, I don't really want you to lose a lot of weight. And you might even just stay the same for a little while as you're getting some muscle going. And that's true. So I also tell them, don't look at the scale so much. You know, don't let that be the only measure of your health. And I do respect the cultural and traditional differences. And this is a big-time roadblock with obesity and trying to talk to people, because that's all they know. So my example of this, there's a bunch of examples, but my example of it is, again, my father-in-law and his wife. They're from Nebraska, and you know, nothing wrong with Nebraska. I'm from Iowa, so I can make fun of them a little bit. But you know, that Midwestern, we have like that Midwestern type of diet where it's meat and potatoes. Potatoes is the vegetable, right, that you have. It's potatoes. Mashed potatoes and gravy, you're good then. You might cook some carrots, but then, you know, and then you have a whatever meat, and then you have a bunch of other things. And then you have like the dessert at the end. We always ate like that, especially at my grandparents. And if my grandfather would see how I ate now, he'd be like, what is this? Like bird food? He would make fun of me, I'm sure. So you have to break through that a little bit. I don't have the best advice on this. You try to work with what they do traditionally. A lot of it is portion control, but I really just try to introduce them to new foods. So like this is the Mediterranean diet, and I'm not paid by the Mediterranean diet people. I'm not even sure if that's the Mediterranean diet is actually just a bunch of different diets along the Greek shore, and I think it encompasses some of the other countries in that area. And so it's really just a mishmash of the lifestyle, really. It's a very active lifestyle, and that promotes that. And then that's their pyramid. I should have a picture of the old pyramid back in the day where you're supposed to follow all the. So this is like, for us, this is more the new pyramid. It's got olive oil in there. It's got some wine in there. That's kind of nice. And it's got your meats. Fish is a little more, and then chicken, and the red meat and stuff is on top, right? So this is what we follow, and it's good. A lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables. So not just potatoes. And this is what I get when I go home. Okay, so this is actually it's like a Thanksgiving, I just Googled Thanksgiving meal, right? But this is what it kind of looks like when I go home. And when I go home now, I do get made fun of. My family makes fun of the way I eat. And that's one of the things that's one of the barriers to talking to patients about it. If I don't have that much meat on my plate, I mean, I'll get that, right? And I'm not a vegetarian, but I don't eat a lot of meat. I might have a smaller portion of potatoes. You're skinny, you need to eat. No, I don't need to eat, but that's kind of, so, but I do try to eat more of like the good stuff, like the peas and the corn and stuff, so I could still make this healthy. I just would have to cut down some of the other things. But in talking to patients, sometimes as docs, we don't realize what their own family are going to tell them, when when they eat like that, if they eat a Mediterranean diet or whatever. So you have to break through that a little bit. So I help them calculate some sort of expenditure. Those aren't set in stone. Those aren't like exact science, but I do help them try to calculate what they're expending, their energy, and try to get them to do an accurate food journal. Nowadays, there's a bunch of apps for it, so you can actually keep a pretty accurate food journal now. I know historically they haven't been very good, but that, if anything, if you don't do anything else, that might keep you honest a little bit, if you're just putting it into an app, you know, and seeing how much calories that is. And I tailor a realistic diet, whatever diet they want to pick from that list, or another diet, we can talk about it as long as it's balanced, that is a little bit of a caloric limitation and below their expenditure, right? And then we pick an exercise or a fitness plan. One of the things that Dan said from the wellness program that I liked is that for a lot of our lives, the exercise was punishment. So I think I looked like that a lot when I was in the military because we were punished to do that. It was, if we didn't have, if we didn't make a certain weight, or they would tape our necks and our waist, and then they would have you do the mile-and-a-half run and push-ups and sit-ups. And if you didn't get a certain score, they would send you to this camp, and they called it Fat Boy Camp. And it was, and so then you get it. And it was really embarrassing. It was, so it was made to like punish you a little bit. And I'm not saying their fitness program is bad. I mean, I'm glad they are promoting fitness, but you want to try to move that into more of a pleasure area of your brain instead of a punishment area. So do something you like to do. If there's anything else if nothing else you leave here, do an activity, a physical activity that you enjoy. I enjoy to run. I never used to, but I do now. But it could be hiking, it could be biking, right? You bike a lot, right? So it could be any of those things, but it's got to be physical. And for those of you that aren't overweight or aren't, in that category, it's still going to help you. Exercise is still going to help you in other ways too. Heart disease, diabetes, all that other stuff. And so there's a ton of benefits. Not to mention you sleep better at night. There's a lot of studies to say that you do better at your work if you're exercising every day, which I believe in that sound body, sound mind thing, which is all over this building, by the way. So anyway, back to this. I pick a modest goal, 5 to 7% of your body weight in the first 3 to 6 months, modest. And I want you to lose it slowly. So it's okay because what was my title on my slide? It was the title slide, 1 to 2 pounds every 4 weeks or something like that. But if you 2 to 4 weeks, yeah. But okay, so if you lose a pound a month, right? 6 months around, that's a year goes by, that's 12 pounds. That might be a little slow for people, right? And it is, if you want to lose it. But maybe if it was a little more like 20 pounds in the year, that's substantial. You're gonna, and then you keep going. After 2 years, it's gonna be 40 pounds. That's what I did. So I didn't lose. I was maybe a little bit faster than that, but probably because I like to run so much. But it was slow, and then your body doesn't want to bounce back so quickly. And I'll go into that just a little bit. So I always want them to promote a healthy lifestyle for the long term. There's like an expenditure thing that you can calculate with them. And then, of course, there's food journals that are apps. My personal advice, I always use the criticism that I got as kind of a motivator and not, because you have to have a fair amount of positive attitude when you go into these type of things. So my brother who's actually skinny, I don't know how he got skinny, but he is. He's one of those, right? So every time when we look at like pictures, like there, he would call I have a cousin Marty who's really obese, and every time we look at a picture, he's like, "Oh, there's me and Marty," and it's funny, that's funny, but I never forgot that. I still don't forget that. I want to go back to that, and so I use it as a motivator. It was interesting when I was going into this talk. I researched Chris Farley a little bit because all of his skits were weight, had something to do with his weight, right? Which was funny, right? And it wasn't it was that skit that he did with Patrick Swayze where they were dancing in Chippendales. A hilarious skit, right? But Chris Rock, one of his better friends, hated that skit because he knew that Chris was doing a lot of drugs at that time, and he would have never done that to himself if he would have been in the right frame of mind. He just didn't think it was funny at all, and it was mean, and that was and he knew that he would have never liked that. So I didn't know that. I always thought that he used that and it was funny, but I don't know in his mind if it really was. So it always plays on you when you are overweight. Any little comment plays on you. Use it as a motivator, though. Try to use it as a positive. All right. Slow weight loss we talked about. Don't weigh yourself too much. You drive yourself crazy. Okay. It just will happen. And then pick a diet for the long term, exercise for fun, and a balanced lifestyle plan. So let's see. I have one other thing. Oh, so weight maintenance. It sometimes is more difficult. Well, I think always is more difficult than the initial weight and loss, and I referred to those hormone signals that that you have so with myself, your body kind of wants to go back to where it was, so some of the hormones will start signaling, hey, you're hungry again, or the ones that are supposed to signal you're not full don't, like leptin or those type of hormones, and so that one is tough because those hormones could last for about a year after you've done the initial weight loss, which makes that maintenance even more. It's kind of like a thermostat. It wants to go back to that temperature, back to that near normal weight. And then as you start losing weight, those compliments people will notice, and it's great. You get that compliment, but that'll start to decline a little bit. So my colleagues here, they didn't even know that I did this. They didn't even know that I was like that before. They thought it was and that's fine. That's good. I'm glad. But you're gonna lose that, and that's far down the road. You lose that extra motivator because people stop noticing, and that's okay. That's the way it should be. But I know that. Any other ideas or questions? I wanted to close that up a little bit early. Yes, Dr. Obadia.
I have a question. Everybody always asks, what's the best way to eat? Is it 6 small meals a day or 3 normal?
Right. So again, what's the best way to eat? So I would say first, it's about the calories, right? The energy that you're putting into your body, and I would lean more toward the smaller meals. So if you had to eat more of a smaller meal, I definitely go with that. And it's kind of like that idea that eating something big it kind of promotes you to eat like that. To eat big meals. So I would go smaller, and if you have to do more frequently, that's fine. And I don't know, some of you notice the way I eat. I eat about every 2 hours. And that's just because I get really hungry. But, but I eat something small about every 2 hours. And I do have a little bit bigger meals, but I think a little bit of a constant would be good. I'm not a proponent of eating like a big meal at one setting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I didn't put a lot of information on menopause, but yeah, that is a struggle. I know. I'm sorry. There are calculations for that too, and the hormone imbalance there. I would say with that there's not going to be a medicine out there, a drug out there that's going to be a be all catch all for weight loss, even when you're going through something like that. I think when you're going through times of menopause or chronic injury, or things that changes in your life, trying to keep that food journal, trying to figure out exactly what you're putting into your body becomes really paramount. Because you want to try to get it as close to that expenditure. Might not be the best time to lose weight, but you at least try to maintain maintain it first. I'm not saying you can't lose weight during that time, but it is a little bit more of a hard time. Yeah.
What about all these green coffee, all the supplements?
Yes.
All the estrogen and Slim Quick or
Yeah.
shake?
Yeah, where they promote that you weren't going to be as hungry and all that.
And the Ally or whatever supplements.
Well, okay, so supplement, I'm not a big supplement guy. I think you saw that, right? If something like that does work, I've never seen it work. Some of the slim fast stuff maybe can work for some people if that's all they're doing, if that's what they're actually doing. But I don't see it as a balanced diet. And I see it as a moneymaker for somebody else and not something that is going to be a balanced, healthy lifestyle plan. You know, you're not going to do Slim Fit for 20 years. You know, and that's what I'm trying to say is you got to do something that is a balanced diet plan, and try to stay away from supplements because I don't know. We're finding out more and more about them. Sometimes we think they're really good, and then when we figure out that they're not that good, and then and so that's I don't really trust that part of it. Some of the comments you had about natural medicines, difficult for me to comment on because they haven't been studied very well. But a lot of that stuff seems gimmicky to me, and I'll bet that a lot of people are making money off of it. So I say eat food, right? Real food, not a lot of processed stuff, and something that's balanced. I knew I was going to hit this because you're not going to hear something from me that's quick and easy. I wish I could. But that's try to eat food, real food, that isn't processed, and stay away from the supplements and the diet stuff. Yeah, that's what I would say. Now Weight Watchers is pretty good. But they have more points and things. They do make money off you, but I think they have it down okay. So what else? Sure. Sustaining. Oh. Well, really, the tricks to sustaining something is you got to pick something that you enjoy. It's, you're not going to sustain. That's why it's hard to sustain like slim fast diet. You've got to do something that you enjoy, and it's got to be an activity that you enjoy, and it's got to be a diet that you enjoy. Otherwise, you're not going to. You're going to go back to the same habits that you had before. And so that's where a lifestyle change is in place. And so for me, it's been my running, because I really like to run. That's where, that's my time. I have my kids and all that, but when I run, that's my time to meditate. That's my time to pray. That's my time to, I enjoy that out even more than just, I got to exercise. And if you can find that, I think that's the key. I can't tell you need to run 30 minutes a day for, that's not, whether it's swimming, biking, whatever it is, I'm sorry, I don't have an easier answer. But the good thing is that there is things for everybody, I think, to enjoy. And you live in a climate that promotes that. I'm very surprised, being from Iowa, that the obesity rates are that high here. Because I know it gets hot in the summer, but all the rest of the time is great. You don't have to shovel sunshine. I mean, it's fantastic. And in Iowa, it's a total shut-in for 4 months, at least 4 or 5 months. You're just not leaving. Sorry, Missouri. So. What's that? That's true. That is an exercise, and I used to count that. I used to say, I'm shoveling. This would be good. But no, just please find something you enjoy. For me, it was. I got one more slide to show you. For me, it was the running, and it just kind of cycled on itself, and it's been a positive cycle. Where's this coming from? What website?
McDonald's.
It's right, Dr. Body. You've been on the McDonald's website, so this is another thing. Coming back to talking to your patients and educating them. That I know McDonald's is trying to be a little bit more healthy, but I mean, yeah. So they still have all the same foods on their menu that they used to have. Now they have like an apple they put in the kids' meal or something. I mean, I don't know. So that's where education comes into play, and just cultural, traditional stuff comes into play. But I wish I had a better answer for your menopause question. So I do think it's possible, but I haven't gone through that. So from a personal way, anything else? Any other ideas or any? I'm not a guru on it. This is what happened to me. If you want to talk about it, you can always email me or talk to me, after this. And I also I set up a little club. It's ATSU. It's a Soma fitness club for the PF Chang's, and it's a little group. If you want to get involved with PF Chang's marathon, half marathon, or I think there's a 5-miler, you can join our group and you get $10 off, and we'll have fun. So it's a student. It's going to be a student-run group. I'm the only member in it right now because I just set it up, but send that email out. So it's good.
Well, thank you, Dr. Allgood.
Yeah.